Hey there everybody, I'm Coach Brandon here today with Coach Will. He's going to be helping me show you guys some sacrificial takedowns. So far in our takedown studies, we've looked at the idea of denying and intercepting our opponent's power hand. If we can't intercept it, we've been looking at breaking and stripping it. And we're going to continue to look at that a little bit today because it's always best if you can take their power hand off. Their power hand will shut down the majority of your takedown attempts. The majority of your takedowns, their power hand, all they do is straighten it, they shut it right down. So the best thing we can do is to take that power hand off. But the techniques that I'm going to show today also can work, even when we don't have dominant grips. The techniques we're going to look at today, they work tremendously well if we can get dominant grips. And these are some of the best, strongest takedowns in the sport. In fact, 2 out of the 3 takedowns we're going to look at today are 2 of my strongest takedowns. And then we're going to look at situations where maybe I can't win the grip fight. They're beating me. They're controlling my head better than I'm controlling theirs. And now we need to try to work out of an inferior grip position. When we cannot win the grip fight battle, lower your expectations. You can come out into the mat with the expectations of trying to break their grips, of dominating the grip fight and taking them down, and dominating with your takedown game. But if you cannot dominate the grip fight and they are dominating it, don't try to overextend and put yourself in bad position for takedowns. Lower your expectations. If you cannot break their grip and they are winning that fight, lower your expectations to either guard pulling, which we'll look at in the future, or sacrificial takedowns, which we're going to look at today. So the 3 takedowns we're going to look at today is the kickover sweep, of which there are a couple different varieties. We have side kickover sweeps and front kickover sweeps. I'm going to use the term sweep and takedown interchangeably. Technically, these are takedowns because they're done from the feet. But understand that the kickover sweep / takedown and the hook takedown, butterfly hook takedown, are very similar to the same techniques that we apply on the floor. From open guard, we had hook sweeps against opponents on the knees. And we used hook sweeps to get them up and over our head. We're going to use the same technique from the feet. And we had kickover sweeps, where we brought our opponent's head over our own head. We lifted them up off the floor using our foot in the hip, and we kicked them up and over our head with a kickover sweep. We're going to use those same strong techniques that we used in our open guard game, and we're going to use those same techniques on the feet as a means of taking our opponent down. Okay? Let's get started with the kickover sweep. Or the kickover takedown. Again, it doesn't really matter, it's all the same. Now, in a kickover takedown, once again, I want to dominate the grip fight. Let's say Will's in a right leg lead, thank you, and he goes to set his power hand, I intercept, and I set my grip here. I go in, I set my own power hand, and I start pulling around the mat, and I get him into the pyramid position, okay? Once I have the pyramid position, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look like I'm going to take a step to the side. Okay, let's turn. Nope, not back, my back. I'm going to look like I'm going to take a step to the side, but then before my weight goes onto my foot, I'm going to take my foot away, I'm going to round my spine, and I'm going to take my foot into his hip. And we get a kickover takedown. You feel all right there? Yep. So that falling step, where it looks like I'm going to go to take a step, but then I don't catch my weight and I take my foot off underneath me and I hang off of his head and I pull his head over my head to get this position here, where his head is over my head. But as I fall, I'm going to take this foot and stick it into the hip. So as I fall, I'm going to open my right elbow to pull his head over my head, and then I'm going to lift his 2 feet off the floor. I would take his hand in underneath of him, and I back roll up to a top position. So that's a basic kickover takedown, the side kickover takedown, where I step like I'm going to go to the side, and watch how when I fall, I'm going to fall across Will. I almost fall so that my feet point in the opposite direction. Okay? If I try to fall straight back, we'll look at ways to do this, but if I were to try to fall straight back, Will's going to sink his weight down, and I won't be able to pull him over me. He's going to be too far. And we'll see in situations like this, because he's pulling his weight backward, it makes it a lot of sense to transition into techniques that take him in a backward direction, such as the humble tripod sweep. So again, looking at this, he's going to go to set the power hand, I intercept, and I keep the power hand off. I use this to start generating motion to expose the back, he turns to face me, and I set my power hand down. Now to generate more momentum, even more momentum with this, is I'm first going to do a cross step, and then as I go around the corner, I'm going to take, let's go around. I take a cross step, and that's going to help me pull and generate more momentum as I step around the corner, pulling through to me. All right, we've seen this in the past, where I step across, and I use that cross step to whip them around to get a good off-balancing effect. But all I'm doing now is when I hit my cross step, I pull myself around, but I don't step on my left foot. I cross step, I pull him around to generate momentum, and then instead of falling onto my left foot, I round my spine, I put my foot into the hip, and I send him up and over the top. Now, it can be kind of difficult to track the hips in the air. So when I do this, sometimes I go down, I get one foot on, and as I'm trying to lift him up, he starts, falls off to one side, and not all the way down, but just, I try to go here, and he catches his balance right here, and he's, catch your base. Yeah, and it fails, okay? So again, he does the same thing, I'm gonna go down and try to lift him, and he just kind of falls off the side and nothing happens. So to help prevent that from happening, we're going to do a couple things. One is as I go down and as I drop, I take my cross step, I pull him around, and as I drop, I want to rotate, I'm going to turn and falling down to my side, and I make sure that my right hand pulls his head over my head. That's going to make it easier for me to get him out of position, or get him, that's going to make it easier for me to lift him. Remember from here at over guard, if I try to lift him from here, I just push him away. But if I can bring his head over my head, and I lift him from here, now I'm going to 2 feet off the floor. So we want to get their head over our head. Another thing that's going to make it more difficult for them to defend is our second leg here. When I fall, and I put my left foot into the hip here, I like to take my right foot and put it on the outside of the belt on the other side of the hip. And as I pull him over, I use my 2 feet together to track his hips and take him over the top. So one time without Will, I have my grips, I hit my cross step, I go into my falling step where I round my spine, I put my foot into the hip, I fall. Now from here, as I roll across, my second foot goes just outside his belt, goes up to the hips. And I use my 2 legs together to back roll over my outside shoulder and complete the sweep, the takedown. When I fall onto my left shoulder, I'm going to roll out over my right. If I go onto my left shoulder, and I take my 2 feet together into the hips, I back roll, I'm going to come out over my right shoulder. So I start on my left, I back roll, and I come out over my right. So one more time, putting this all together. If he sets the power hand, and he grips up with me, I need to break the cuff grip. Right, we looked at this in the past. These are previous lessons, this is review. When I go to break this cuff grip here, I can't get my hand to the cuff grip, he's got a grip on me. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break that grip. I come in here, I break this power hand grip. I get a grip on him, I send him around. Now from here, I take my cross step. I take my cross step, I go into my falling step, and as I do this all at once, I tuck his hand underneath of his body so he rolls over his shoulder. My right elbow pulls high and I pull his head over my head. And my 2 feet go to the hips. So I let my body weight fall. We throw him up and over, and we back roll out over the right shoulder to top position. So that's our side kickover sweep with dominant grips. Let's look at it with inferior grips. Let's say I come in, Will sets his power hand, and he's got a grip on me, he's got it nice and high, so he's dominating my head. He's a good grip in my head. Maybe I can't get my power hand high on him, or I feel like he's dominating the grip fight. Maybe I go to break his grip, and it's just so darn strong I can't break anything. In situations like that, I can just work here with neutral grips. Okay, I'm going to grip his elbow here. I'm going to grip the lapel here. Now from here we can do the same thing. Now, I want to create dilemmas between driving and dragging takedowns, if possible. Okay? So what I want to do is, if possible, if he lets me, I want to pull my head to his shoulder. If he stiff arms me away, then we're going to have to work without it. But if possible, I like to try to bend this elbow and get my head to the shoulder. Because now if he stands up high, I can start coming into single legs. If he hides his feet back and away and stands lower, now I can't get the single legs, but the kickover sweep can come a lot easier because his weight is well over his feet. I get my grip on the elbow, and now from here I go in my cross step, my falling step, and I take him up and over. That's if I can get my head to the shoulder. If I can't get my head to the shoulder, we can also do it from back here. It's not as strong, it's not as good, but it can still work. I'm here. Now, I want to get his head in front of his toes. If he's standing straight up, or even just maybe here, it's really tough to pull his head. It's really tough for me to go into kickover sweeps. He's just going to keep good posture. It's hard for me to pull him over in a way that I can pull him over my head. So I want to get his head in front of his feet. I can use trip attempts to do that. From here, I can come in, hook, push him backward, getting his feet back. Okay? So I can come in, I can look for inside trips, I can look for outside trips. I just come in here, I get him out of position, I snap his head down and forward, and we get him in the right position. Now from here, we go into our cross step. Let's move away from the wall so we don't hit. So he's up. We come in, push, I go to my cross step, up over the top, and we have our kickover sweep, our kickover takedown. So again, you can do it from dominant grips, you can do it from inferior grips. Let's look at another way to do it from inferior grips. This time, let's look at the front kickover sweep. Now the front kickover sweep is a lower percentage technique, it doesn't work quite as well. But if you do it right, it can still be pretty darn strong. Let's take a look. In a situation where he's dominating the grip fight, okay, just like so. Another option that I can do is I can forego the grip on the head, and I can get double elbow or double tricep grips. Grips right here between the elbows and the armpits. Okay, now from here, I'm going to move him around, trying to square his stance up to me. And now from this grip, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump my foot to the inside ankle line. Here. So I jump in like so, and as I do that, my other foot goes to the hip. Here. Okay? Now, I'm not jumping deep enough right now because I'm trying to stay on my feet to talk to you. In reality, I'm going to jump so far in that my body weight is going to hang off of Will. And I get him coming down and forward into a sweep. So there's a sense that I come into my grips, I square them up, and then I'm not going to do the kickover now, but when I go in, I'm going to jump, and once my foot comes off the floor, I'm going to hang all of my weight off of Will as I jump forward. And you see how it gets a very strong forward pull effect. Now there I didn't have a foot in the hip. Without a foot in the hip, he can just come on top and crush me. Okay? This time when I do it, I'm gonna have my foot in the hip, so that when he starts to come up over the top of me, I can start to take him over. So I'm here, I go in, putting a foot in the hip just like so. Now from here, I'm gonna use my 2 elbow grips. First, I pull the elbows up and open to pull forward, getting his weight onto my foot. But now from here, there's a problem that he might base, and he won't go anywhere. So I'm gonna take the elbows out and open to pull him forward, and then once I feel like I'm gonna have the sweep, I take his elbows in toward the center line again. So he reaches for the mat. I take his elbows in so he can't reach, and then he has no base and he goes over. There's something else we can do to add some power to our front kickover sweep. I can use my second leg, my support leg, as a butterfly hook to help pull his hips forward. So we're in here, he takes his grips. I come in here working with inferior grips. I have the armpits, I have the seam that runs down the back of every sleeve. There's a seam that runs down the back of every sleeve. You gotta grab that seam. So he grips up with me, I grab that seam, trying not to pinch his arm. Now from here, I'm gonna jump in, putting my foot to the inside ankle line as my other foot gets ready to catch the hip. And I pull him forward. Now from here, he's going to try to sink his weight back. So another thing I can do is I can take my right foot and I can make a hook right on the hips. And now as he sinks his weight back, I'm going to pull forward with both my arms, pulling the elbows open. I'm going to use my butterfly hook to draw him forward. And I'm going to pull my left knee to my chest so I'm not fighting myself. If my left leg still pushes and I pull with a butterfly hook, nothing happens. I need both legs to pull in to get him up and over. Now we take the elbows into the center line and we take them up and over for the front kickover sweep or the front kickover takedown. Again, this is another good option when you feel like you're losing the grip fight. So those were 2 good options for the kickover takedown. We had the side kickover takedown where we fall across our partner and pull their head over our head. And we have the front kickover takedown where we hop right in through the middle, right into the inside ankle line, and we pull them up and over us. Now, let's move on to the last 2 takedowns we're going to cover today, the hook takedown and the sacrificial collar drag. These 2 takedowns, I would say, are my strongest 2 takedowns that I have. So much so that I actually, I try to avoid using them in training because I've gotten so comfortable with them, because they've gotten so effective. I'm trying to explore new things. But these 2 are just so damn strong. When you learn to do them well, they are hard to stop. Okay, so a couple good sacrifice takedowns. One side note here. Sacrifice takedowns that we're showing in this video, great for the sport of jiu-jitsu. Okay, in the sport of jiu-jitsu, people will often stand with bent over stances, like so, which means any sort of dragging takedown that takes me forward is usually going to be pretty effective. Things like snap downs, forward trips, forward reaps, things like that. These sacrifice takedowns are very strong formations of that, where we pull our entire body weight into it. So it works very well for the common stances in jiu-jitsu. It also works really well for the rules of jiu-jitsu, because if I botch this takedown, if I try one of these takedowns and it fails, you pull guard. So what? Now work from the open guard. You know how to work from open guard. Inside position, Ashigarami X guard. Outside position, you can use daily Hiba. You can use collar cup bicep. It's all the open guard stuff. Okay. On that note, actually, let's come back to the kickover sweep. One last note. Make one last note in your kickovers. If I go to do a kickover takedown and my opponent sinks their weight back and away, we go back in a takedown or a sweep that takes them in a backward direction. Remember, if I come in here, let's say I go for my front takedown or my front kickover, and he sinks his weight back and away, and I'm trying to kick him over and it's not working because he's pulling back, go to a technique that takes him in a backward direction. Okay? Come down here to the ankle, make a hook behind the knee, foot in the hip, and now we come up on a tripod sweep. So if we try these dragging takedowns and our opponent sinks their weight back and away, pulling back, use sweeps that take them in that direction. Right? Use your partner's resistance against them. Now, let's get into these favorite techniques of mine. Let's get into our hook takedown, our butterfly hook takedown. There are two variations. My favorite is the penetrating variation. We'll look at that first. And then there's also a sitting variation. I like that one too, and we'll look at that as well. First, the penetrating hook takedown. With this hook takedown, we're actually going to create a situation where I get to the standing flank position rather than the pyramid. Let's say he's got a switch stance. Let's say he's a left leg lead. I'm just going to have him in this lead because this is my good side. If he had a right leg lead, we would just work the other side. So he's going to get his power hand, which is usually the lead leg side. Perfect. So this is his power hand right here. Usually when we break in a power hand, I set a straight cuff grip. This time, I'm going to set a cross cuff grip. I'm going to come up here with my left hand, my cross cuff that takes a grip on his cuff. I come in, getting my thumbs underneath. I dance away, I pop the grip off. Now before I release the hand, I'm going to take his hand across my center, and I'm going to pull my elbow into my hip. So now my left arm position is very strong. When Will goes to pull his arm back across the body, it's not easy. Now from here, my right arm is free. I'm going to set a power hand right up here. You can grip the rear shoulder on the near side. You can grip the rear shoulder on the far side. You can also take your thumb and put your thumb in here right at the peak of the collar. This happens to be my personal favorite grip. Thumb inside the peak of the collar and you grip. And then from here, he's probably going to try to square up to me. If he doesn't square up, I'm going to just throw a body take to that. So everybody squares up. As they square up, I like to take my head and I put it into the shoulder on the opposite side of my power arm, just like so. Now from here, I'm going to start using these grips to push and move him around the mat, getting into a dominant position. Now from here, my right foot steps to the inside ankle line. My left foot is going to step through, and we're going to penetrate through the inside ankle line as I fall across his body. As I fall across the body, I put in a butterfly hook on the cross buttock here, the cross hamstring. And now from this position, my left leg driving off the floor, my butterfly hook driving forward, and my power hand pulling forward. All three of these actions at the same time. Power hand pulling, butterfly hook lifting, and drive leg driving. All three of these at the same time make for an incredibly powerful throw down to the floor. From here, I come up right to my right elbow, so I'm already winning the battle for head height. And now I just scissor my legs, coming to the top position. One of two things is going to happen from here. Your opponent is either going to curl up and look to turn into you, getting elbows and knees together, or they're going to look to go with the momentum and turn away from you and scramble back to their feet or to turn. Okay, one of two things is going to happen from that. So, when I get to here, if he tries to curl himself up, I pummel my foot here to the pocket of the hip. Now when he tries to bring his knee and elbow together on this side, my shin's in the way. I still have to worry about this knee. If he connects this knee and elbow together and I come up, he can use these to frame and make space. So as I come up and I see his far elbow and knee coming together, my left hand weaves right in here between the elbow and the knee, and I take my elbow as a wedge into the pocket of the hip. Now my knee and my elbow are connected together, so when Will tries to re-guard, my left elbow and knee together, keep his legs out. And we take our top position. So one more time, he goes to grip. I set a cross cuff grip this time. We've usually been working with straight cuff grips and getting to the pyramid position until now. I'm going to recommend for this hook takedown, you use a cross cuff grip. We break his grip. Pull his hand across your center line. If I leave the hand here and I go for the power hand right away and Will starts to retract his arm back, he's kind of got the same thing on me, right? A cross cuff on me is a cross cuff with him if he grabs my sleeve. The one who wins here is the one who's better at keeping their arm retracted back and dominating. So when I get this grip, if I get pop and he pulls his arms back to his hip, this is not a, keep your arm strong now, this is not a particularly strong grip. Okay, this isn't much advantage. But if I can take his hand across the center line and I can anchor it close to me, now when he goes to take his arm back, this is a better grip. This is one that's hard for him to get away from. Here, he's winning. Here, I'm winning. Okay? So he sets the power hand, cross cuff, break and dance away. We use the strength of 2-on-1 to bring his hand over. If he tries to bring his hand back to his hip here, I'm going to overpower it because I have two hands on his one. We bring it to the hip. Now from here, my right hand sets on the peak of the collar. He's going to square up to me, and as he does, I set my head right on the opposite shoulder. And now we have all of our grips that we need. We're ready to go. Step number one, step to the inside ankle line with the same side leg as the power arm. Okay, so that's number one. Step number two, I'm going to fall across my opponent's body as I step through his ankle line, beyond the ankle line with my penetrating leg. And that pulls me into this position here. Now as I do that, my right butterfly hook already goes and finds its position. So we go here. I've already got my butterfly hook hooked in. You guys see how that happens very quickly? I'm in here, into my position. I go 1, 2, 3, and I send them up and over the top. Now from here I rock up to my elbow and I look for his reaction. If he turns into me, I find the pocket of the hips. If he turns away from me, I catch the hip right here. He goes to fight his way to turtle. I pull him back into me, and we have a top dominant position. This is also a rotational throw. When I set my grips, when I go to do this, I'm not trying to go through and pull him straight back. Square your stance up to me. I'm not trying to go here and pull him straight over the top of me. Rather, I'm getting motion in circular, I'm getting motion going in a circular motion. I step across here, I continue to circle around as I fall and pull him overhead. So I step in and I rotate around and I throw him over. From here I come to my right elbow and I look for his reaction. Okay. One more time, regular speed. This time I'll try to not catch Will with my knee in the jaw. You all right, buddy? Yeah. Okay. So he sets the hand. Boom. Bring it across. I go here, we dance around. We go through. And we're up. Okay, so that is our penetrating hook sweep. Let's do one with a close stance. Because this takedown is so strong, I highly recommend you add this to your game. It's one of my strongest takedowns. And I want you to be able to do it on somebody who does a close stance. So if he sets this power hand, you're going to do the same thing, you just got to get comfortable on the other side. Got to get comfortable on the other side. So I'm here, cross cuff. grip, break, across, power hand. He squares up. And now I start going in. I step through, pull him over, and we come up. So it doesn't matter if your opponent comes out in a closed stance or if they come out in an open stance. You can use the same technique on either side. It's relatively easy to learn on both sides, and it's very strong. Let's look at the sitting hook sweep. This one we do with a little more distance, but you can. So when I'm here, he goes to reach out for a power hand, I break, okay, control. I set my own power hand like so. Now from here, what I like to do is I come in, I step in with my rear leg, so my left foot steps into the pyramid position. My right leg, I take my knee, and I put it right on his hip, making a butterfly hook on the leg. Now from here, I like this trick. I start hopping my foot in a little bit, closer to him, and I sit my butt to the floor, pulling him over the top of me. Now from here, I'm going to use my right leg to start elevating. As I send him over to this direction, he's going to base. He's probably going to keep that foot out for base, and that's fine. Now I take my foot out, I push the knee. As I continue to pull him forward and elevate, sending him over. Okay. So again, we're here, I break, I set my power hand, squaring him up. From here, I'm coming in, I set my hook. Now from here, I hop into him. I'm going to look where I want Will to land. So I turn and I look where I want to throw him. I'm going to sit down to my butt as I pull him over the top of me with my power hand, and I start elevating with my right leg. I start getting him over the top of me. From here, if he goes over the top, I go right into a kickover sweep. If he pulls back and away, feet back, block your feet back, and we get to this situation, well now this is where I can start coming to the knee. And I start pushing that knee out of the way as I take him up and over with a hook sweep. Another way this one really works well, and another way that's my personal favorite way to put it on, is rather than with a lapel grip, is to do it with an overhook. So let's say I have an opponent who gets an underhook on me. Here. I take an overhook on him, just like so. So now when he tries to take my back or do anything, he can't because I have the whizzer. If he gets an underhook and I leave my arm here, he can get underneath my arm and take my back. So from here I put a whizzer on. Now from here I'm looking to dominate the hand fight. I'm looking to get a grip on his wrist, he's looking to get a grip on mine. So we're usually here hand to hand, looking to dominate the grip fight. If he gets a grip on me, just pull your hand away. Seize one on him. From here I put in my butterfly hook. My knee goes to the outside.